All right, so let me start this episode by asking you a question. When was the last time you had a strong spiritual experience? It might have been today. Was it yesterday? Or maybe it's been a long time, maybe a very long time. I've had a few of those, like really strong spiritual experiences. And I probably, I wish I had more of them. But I probably, and I'm going to say this flat out, I probably am not deserving of that. Why? Because I don't know that I've always invited that. I don't know that I've always been in a position where I'm trying to really think something through and reason through something in my life, and something about me or family or work or whatever it might be. And I'm, I might pray about it, but I think there's something where you really are taking time, real time, to contemplate something and to ponder it, and then to invite the Spirit and to make the Lord a part of what you're dwelling on. And it might not even be a problem, but it might be something that's going to help you progress, and something that might be where it's insightful for you, and it's something that you can take advantage of, right, and move forward. I recently had one of the stronger spiritual experiences. And I'm not going to go over that. It's a little bit personal, but it made me reflect on other times in my life where these, they're not small things, right? They're not. They're anchor points for me. These are things that have made a difference in my life, and have. Where there's not just the veil has been parted a little bit, but where there's actually, a pillar of light that almost comes down and is moving, right? It's something that pierces your soul. And so as I thought about those things, and I thought about some of these experiences that I've had, I thought about how that changes my relationship with the Lord, and how it strengthens my faith, right? And of course you have to have the faith and the works to get in there beforehand, but that type of thing, how those are anchor points, not just for a testimony either. It's not just an anchor point for a testimony. It's an anchor point for a relationship with God, and it's a testament to the plan of salvation, and to my own identity and who I am, when I can reflect off of the Lord, of my Heavenly Father, and understand receiving something like that, something that strong in the Spirit, then it's a reflection I'm looking at, so to speak, that I can see myself in, right? And it strengthens my identity as a child of God, is what I'm saying. So I thought I would just go over a few of these experiences that I've had, and maybe you've had something like this. Maybe you've had these really strong, moving, piercing, sometimes spiritual experiences that have moved you, and maybe you've had them in the past, and then you've moved away from that and fallen away, and then maybe come back, and maybe that was something that strengthened you in coming back to a relationship with the Lord. Maybe you've never had one. And that's something void in your life still. But I thought I'd relate a few of these and see if you can relate to some of these experiences, or if you can think about how you can gain one of these experiences, and what that might do for you, right? First, I want to go over when I was a teenager. This was my first real spiritual experience, and I was a kid that my parents split when I was 6 years old. I had a very involved father when he could be. Went to his home every other weekend. He was on the phone with me every week. Very loving, strong father figure that just didn't live in my home, and I didn't have his supervision. But so I was a little bit of a troublemaker as a kid. I got into a lot of trouble. I didn't do a lot of bad things, but I was adventurous. I was in trouble with things, and I had a group of friends that I had this kind of fun with, and good guys, but not really putting me in a position, in being with them where I was moving forward in my life. And, I was also the youngest kid in my class, right? In a sophomore class of almost 500 people. And I was the very youngest kid in that class. And I think that showed sometimes. I just wasn't as mature maybe as some others. But, at the same time, I was taller, maybe a little bit bigger than some guys. And so that helped me out. That probably helped. But I was, and when you have those bonds, right, with those types of friends, that's the last thing in the world you're thinking of is, I'm going to sever this. I'm going to, 14-year-old boy, I'm going to all of a sudden cut everything off here and change everything. I don't know how I could have ever arrived at that without feeling the Spirit. And this was my first real spiritual experience. And I was laying in bed one night and I was thinking about this a little bit. That's the first thing. I mean, maybe there was inspiration for me to think about it. I don't know. But I was thinking about, okay, these are my best friends. They're my best friends. I am loyal to them. They're loyal to me. We have a bond. But there's a problem. There's how valuable am I? Right? How valuable am I? That's what I started asking myself. What is my worth? And is it worth, am I worth enough to make a change? Right? If I can see that value, that self-value, that self-worth, is that more important? Not that I needed some kind of fake appraisal, or praise coming to me. Not like an esteem issue, not a self-esteem issue, but actually saying, I have a certain worth and I need to align myself with that worth. That's what I started thinking about. And I remember staying up all night just thinking about this. And at first I was like, this is a crazy thought. How would I ever do this? But as the night wore on and I thought more and more about this and really thinking about my future, and which was really the first time that at any kind of a mature level, I really started to think about that. I came to the conclusion by the end of the night, because of what I felt and that feeling that I had when I was talking about that self-value, it was this, the Spirit started to work on me and work on me and work on me. And as the night went on, I started feeling this strength that I had never felt before. And I began to see very clearly that what I had to do was to make a change. And for a 14-year-old boy, it was a major change. And so that next morning, I got up and knew what I was going to do. And I talked to my mom that next day, after she was a school teacher. So when she got home from work, I talked to her and I said, because this was another hard thing for me to do. I mean, I'm the oldest child in that home. I've got a younger brother and a younger sister. And not that I was the most incredible older brother in the world, but I know that was going to be something hard for my mom and all the way around. And I said to her, I need to make a change. And she knew it, right? She knew that was the case. And I think that as much as she didn't want to go through with that, I think she knew, wow, this is a mature thing that he's doing. He's never done anything like this before. And what I decided was I was going to go live with my dad and spend the time with him and go to a different high school and build up relationships with new friends and have different experiences, et cetera. And so that's what I did. And that changed my life. I honestly don't know where I would have gone in my life if I wouldn't have done that. And so I did that for a year, well, almost a year. And I spent the time over there, and I built new relationships, and it strengthened me. I became a little bit of a different person, a little bit, right? And then I decided, okay, I'm going to go back. And so I ended up going back. But what I did is when I went, this is very hard, when I went back to my original high school that following year, I made new friends, even though my older friends were there. And that's not easy, right? Because you feel like you're letting people down, or they're not good enough, or whatever it might be. And that's a hard thing. And I think that's part of life. You have to do that sometimes. You have to try, you have to make the right decision. It's not that I wasn't willing to be friendly to them and be there for them or anything like that, but I had to make that change. Secondly, this is right before I go on my mission. And I had a very good relationship with my bishop, and spent a lot of time with him, and he was good to me. I was one of the priests, kind of, and I was actually beyond being a priest at this time. I was 18 years old, and I had been to BYU as a 17-year-old, and then came back home for a while and was working for a while. And I wasn't really going into the right place. I had always thought I would go on a mission, but at this time I was thinking maybe not. I wasn't going to go on a mission. And this is the very opposite type of spiritual experience. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this because it is a little bit personal, and it's not something maybe that all of the details should just be put out into public out there into the ether. But suffice it to say, I was over at a friend's house, and I started feeling a little different, and I decided to go into another room while they were watching TV, and I stayed there. And again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but it was a horrible experience. It was an absolutely horrible experience. I felt an immense darkness and void, and I came to the point where I didn't know that I was going to make it through this experience. That sounds very dramatic, and I guess it was very dramatic. And it was pure darkness. It was absolutely pure darkness. And my friend later came into the room where I was sitting on this bed, and he said, "What's going on?" And I said, first words out of my mouth, this was a non-member, I said, "I'm going on a mission." And so it wasn't the piercing sense of pure truth and goodness and comfort. It was void. It was darkness. And I knew that if I didn't go on a mission, that this was what it was going to lead to. I knew this. I knew that this was what was going to be happening to me, in the end, at least. And so I did, and I planned a mission, and I was so committed to do this. This was at a time where it went from 1.5 years to 2 years. Right? They moved it it was only 1.5 years for a short amount of time, but they were changing it the following year to 2 years. Well, this was toward the end of the year, and I went to the bishop and I said, "I'm going on a mission." And I said, "Great." And we started the process. We're in the middle of the process, the paperwork and everything else, and then the change comes. And so my bishop takes me to this really nice restaurant out on the ocean, right, down in Dana Point, and I think he's very concerned about what I'm going to say. He says, "Look, Greg, I don't know, we can hurry and probably push this through and get this paperwork done by the end of the year. But if this paperwork isn't done and submitted by the end of the year, then the change is moving to 2 years. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that." And I already knew what I was going to do. I thought I was happy about it. I was like, you know what? I don't want to submit. I don't even want the choice. Because if you ended up submitting your papers before the end of the year, then you were going to have the choice of going a year and a half or 2 years. And I said, I don't want the choice. I do not even want the choice. And so I told him, hold off on the paperwork for a couple of weeks here, moving these things forward at all. And then we're going to submit this in the, first week or two of January. And so that's what I did. I said, I want the full 2-year commitment no matter what. I don't want the option. I don't want that to be a temptation for me. I need 2 years on a mission. And I knew it. And so that's what we did. And so that was kind of the reverse type of a thing. I don't know if you've experienced something like that before. I'm sure you have. I'm sure most of you have. Where it's just a real darkness. And yet, for me, that darkness pushed me towards something that was brilliant and was amazing for me. And again, a life changer for me at that time. My home teacher visited us as we were going through the paperwork and our family and said, well, I guess if Greg is going to go on a mission, I guess anybody can go on a mission. There's probably a little bit of truth to that. Now, the third and last thing I want to go over here is also a wonderful experience, and it was a little bit different. It wasn't something I was working on. It wasn't anything that was going to create a sudden change in my life as far as direction goes in any way. It was completely out of the blue. But I was doing the right things. This is when I was on my mission. I went to my mission in Mexico City. And this would be a little more than maybe halfway through my mission. I'm out in a larger area. Back then, the missions were much larger in Mexico. And I'm out in an area that's called, the region is called El Bajío, right? It's like the lowlands, north of Mexico City. And I'm in a city called Irapuato, and I spent a lot of time there. And one of the missionaries there, who I was close to, when back in the day, you'd have missionaries that would live sometimes 6 or 8 missionaries together. It was the best thing in the world. Now, I think for the most part, in most places, there, it's always just 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. And maybe there's a few exceptions to that. But it was great because you'd come home at night and they're there and you could bond with them. And it was a good experience. And so anyway, this other missionary who was also American, I never had an American companion my entire time on my mission, all Mexican. Which was wonderful for the language and wonderful for getting to know those companions so well. But one day we went out on splits. And so I'm out with this other missionary, and he says, okay, one thing we need to do is we're going to go to the hospital, right? There's a member of this ward that I'm responsible for as a missionary. He's an elderly man, and he's in the hospital, and the doctors are saying that he's not going to make it, maybe not even through the night. And so his family, maybe his wife was a member, I can't remember, but the rest of his family was not. And so we go to the hospital, this Mexican hospital, and then of course you walk through this hospital, and every hospital room there has got this big cross up on the wall, right? And makes sense there. And I walk in with this missionary, and the family's there. And I don't remember how many. I mean, it could have been as much as a dozen or as few as 5 or 6. I don't remember. But they're there, and they're not members of the church. And we're going to give this man a blessing. And I do the oil. So I anoint the man with the oil. And this other missionary who I was close with, he puts his hands then on his head, and I put my hands on the missionary's hands, right? And he begins to give the blessing. Well, what do you do in this circumstance? A lot of you priesthood holders have been through this circumstance or something similar to it. It's like, oh my goodness, okay, what am I going to say? Do I have the faith to know exactly what I need to do and what I should say? This is a life and death kind of situation here. How much influence does the blessing have? There's a lot of things going on in your mind, and of course, the answer is you just trust in the Lord, right? You have faith in the Lord. And so he's giving the blessing and he's going over things. And it kind of comes to that time of the blessing where it's go time, right? It's like, what are you going to say? What is the deal here? And he stops. And he's silent for a while. Sorry about getting emotional on this, but so this was interesting because this type of a spiritual experience, I knew he was given the blessing, but I knew what the answer was. And he did too. And I don't know if he had maybe a little bit of a pause in actually saying it. I probably would. Right? I would probably have a pause in saying that. But it's one of those things where when you experience it, this is not an emotional thing. This is not this is the Lord. This is the Spirit that's talking to you. And I knew it. I knew it. And I knew what he was thinking. I knew what my missionary companion there was thinking. And so I put my hands just kind of stronger on his hands and kind of squeezed him a little bit. Like, hey, I know too. I have the answer also. And so he went ahead and gave the blessing and told him that he was going to live. Now imagine, again, you're in front of all of his family, right? The non-member family that's out there. And the doctor has said he's not going to probably make it through the night. And that's why we're there, right? It's like reading him his last rites kind of a thing. And so he goes through with it and he tells him, you're going to be fine and you're going to be healthy and you're going to get through this and you're going to have many more things that you need to accomplish in your life. And I remember as he closed with the blessing, the first thing I did was look up at him and had a smile. I think I smiled to him at that point. And then I looked over at his family. And they were stunned. They were stunned with what we were saying. I mean, how would you feel? You know, they're all there. They're probably gathered from out of town, some of them even. You know, like, I don't know. But anyway, just to let you know what happened, he went through the night. He woke up early in the morning. He pulled all of his IVs and electrodes and everything else that might have been attached to him at that point. Pulled them all off and walked on his own strength in his robe, his hospital robe, to the cafeteria that next morning and ate. And that brings a smile to my face, but I knew that's what was going to happen. I knew the answer, right? It's just one of those things you just know. It was like I talked about that idea of something piercing in you. I knew. And by the way, that missionary was my best friend then, and he became my best man at my wedding, and he's still probably my best friend today. And so again, I'm going to ask you, when is the last time that you had a strong spiritual experience? And I don't know that we're always supposed to be looking for that, but I think we're always supposed to be in a position where we can receive it. And I think a big part of that is, as we're told in section 9 of the Doctrine and Covenants, is sitting and sitting and pondering, really pondering, but in a way that you're inviting the Lord. I think I make the mistake oftentimes of asking for help when I'm in prayer only, kind of like on my knees. It's a nightly prayer, whatever it might be. But boy, that time when you're really pondering, that's a different type of prayer, right? It's where you're opening up and you have some kind of a communication with your Heavenly Father and with the Spirit. That's I need to do that more. And this is a question that I know. I mean, I know that this is, as I look back on all of these experiences, and these are a few of them, and it's not like I've had a ton of them, but I've had opportunities to serve, and I've had opportunities to have these experiences, but I know what they do for me. I know what that does with my identity, understanding who I am, my relationship with the Lord, yes, also my testimony, but my faith in the Lord and how I'm going to work with the Spirit. And I ask my kids, I ask them sometimes, but I pray all the time for them to have spiritual experiences. I think it's crucial. I hope you have these experiences as well.